Okay, so I'm recording this one for my friends. I don't usually record stuff, but I'm gonna record this one just for laugh. And today we are studying the 1953 Zurich tournament, the game between Tайманов and Bronstein. Bronstein. The Bronstein is the author of the book, and mm, I'm gonna quickly summarize what he has been saying, what he has been saying about this game in the book. The book is in Russian. You can find the book in English, but since you're watching my channel, I found Russian version a little bit more laconic, I would say, or easy to understand. So this is the commentaries of Bronstein, or по-русски Bronstein, about his own game. He said the following: It's hard to be objective about your own games. Your own ideas always seems to be interesting. You always want to talk about them, but your opponent's ideas is not always clear. For your own mistakes, you always find the explanations. Mistakes of your opponent are quite natural, seems to be quite natural, and you don't even want to, explain them. That's why, even before I start to write commentaries about this game, I should say that final advantage for black, which is my color, has not been appearing for a very long time, almost to the end. The psychological reason of losing the game for white is because they didn't see the critical moment when they should have been seriously contemplating the draw, the possibility of making the draw. And what about the purely chess reasons? I would try to note them in the commentaries or in the additional notes to the game. So the game is starting d2, d4, knight g8, knight f6, c2, c2, c4. Let me see if okay. c2, c4, c7, c5, d4, d5, g7, g6, g7, g6, knight b1, c3, d7, d6, e2, e4, b7, b5. Wait. d4, f6. What is missing here? d4, f6, c4, c5, d4, d5, g6, g7, g6, knight b1 to c3. No, it's not e. Or is it? Yeah, knight c3. d7, d6 here. Right? e2, e4. b7, b5. I hope I make everything because I have already set it up. And what's difference here to this? Ah, wait. So here we have d6, which is correct move. And here I have e6, which is not correct move. Okay. I was arguing with a friend about this variation. And I was telling him that Bronstein made a blunder here because computer is giving it +1 already without exchanging anything. But if instead black will be playing e6, which I was calculating, and give +4 to that. So I'm still, learning chess. So this is the position. This is what Bronstein is. I'm gonna say it in Russian. This is gonna be, I guess, more aesthetically right. Bronstein is saying the following. So what is the black are achieving by sacrificing the pawn? First of all, they are attacking the pawn on d5. And after that, after the c takes b5, a6, a takes b5, b takes a6, I'm sorry. They open the files, and they open this diagonal for the bishop, for the black white squared bishop, which is located on this diagonal, which is rather poor according to the author. Of course, according to computer, all his analysis is defective, but we are not computer, so we should be not worrying about that. Also, he say this, the reason for the sacrifice is that is the open files. He say also don't forget about the bishop on g7, the place of the bishop on g7, because black will be keeping the pawn on e7, keeping the pawn e7 on the place, which will enlarge the radius of the attack for the bishop. Also, Bronstein notes that there is a strategic idea which happened in the old Indian defense. Now, this is book from 1980. This is third edition, but still, it's not a computer theory. Probably today in a computer theory, it is not the idea that Bronstein is explaining here, but he say the opening, the sacrificing of these 2 pawns, immediate, not the sacrifice of 2 but 1, will be beneficial for the rook, which will be active because the file will be open. He also say there is a disadvantages to this strategy, and the main disadvantage, of course, is that you down a pawn. If white will be able to conquer the first difficulties of the game, then the end game will be better for white. That's why nobody else on the tournament has played b7, b5 in any other games. But here is Bronstein say interesting thing. He say, I didn't I was doing this because I didn't want to be bothered to play the first game of the tournament with long defense, which black will have to bear if the continuation will be more orthodox. Basically, he just wanna have fun. So, white continue. C pawn takes B, obviously. Bishop C8 go to G7. King G1. Not king, but knight. It's just the Russian notation is saying key with for king and for knight. Knight G1 to F3. Castling. Bishop F1. Bishop F1 to E2. A7, A6. Here is the following commentaries of Bronstein. Until this moment, I could have been having hopes about getting my pawn back. But now the sacrifice is real. B5 takes A6. Bishop C8 takes pawn on A6. White castle. The following commentary. Almost the same or exactly the same position I have been playing white against Lundin in Stockholm in 1948. I was exchanging bishops and black took on A6 with a knight. So here with a knight. Then they would rotate it from C7 and B5 to D4, which is here. This maneuvering appears to me too slow. That's why in the current game I took on A6. Wait. I took on A6 with the rook, he say, but in the notation it says with the bishop. So I'm confused now. I'm confused. So how's it continue? This way. This. Okay, sorry. So this one go to C7. E1. Knight B D7. Bishop E2 A6. Ah, he mean this. Okay. So it's right. He was explaining the position after some moves. So after the exchange of bishops, there is a choice for black to take with the knight or with the rook. And the game he was playing as white against someone in 5 years ago, 5 years prior to the game he was playing now. His opponent took with the rook, and he found it not optimal, and he instead, I mean, his opponent took with the knight, but he found it, no, his opponent took with the rook, but he found it not optimal. So he wanted to go with the knight on b8. He wanted to go to a4 square, so he can exchange knight on c3, and he wanted to make vulnerable a2 square and b2 for that matter. So the game continue. Castling, queen d8 c7, rook f1 e1, knight b8 to d7, bishop e2 to a6, take with the rook, queen d1 to e2, attacking the rook. This is the position. Taimanov, who is playing white, having idea about pushing e4, e5, so he could destroy the fundamental defense structure of the black. But tactically, he wasn't successful in doing it. This one. Instead of rook to e1, hold on. Instead of rook to e1 here, move 11, and move 13, queen to e2, the more perspective was ideas of here to play bishop c1 to f4, and after knight to d7 to play queen d1 d2, and after he could have point the rook from f on c1 and another rook on b1, which would indicate slow maneuver of all pieces and all pawns from the diagonal attacked by the bishop, or I mean he means probably this diagonal, one of those diagonals. Then Bronstein suggests white should execute b4 and start to realize extra pawn advantage. That's how Bronstein said he was playing 5 years ago, and he was supposing it was the good plan. I don't think Bronstein say whether he won this game or not that he played 5 years ago. Anyway, the game continued with queen on a2, rook from f8 to a8, h2, h3. Here is explanation. Taimanov, who is playing white, was thinking about going e4, was going to go e4 this move, but he wasn't found it useful because he saw the following idea: e4, d takes e4, knight e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, queen takes e5, queen takes e5, rook takes e5, king f8. That's why he didn't want to push e4. Thank you, competitive. I'm doing for my Bulgarian uncle. I'm gonna put it on YouTube, and I'm gonna do all the other. I think this book is fascinating. Everybody should read Zurich 1953 book because it's a great book. It's one of the first books that with annotated games. And I think that's how I understand it from the preface of it. And yeah, it's just positionally very. It's more nice than learning chess openings from Chessable to read these classical books because it's positional understanding of the chess that is sometimes very important. Anyway, the game continued. H2 H3 by white, abandoning the H5 push. And black respond with knight d7 to b6, bishop c1 to g5, bishop c1 to g5, knight f6 to e8. Kinda backwards move, but I guess smart. Bishop g5 to d2, retreating back because there is nothing to do here apparently. The following commentary issued. Again, it's impossible for white to play here e5 instead of rook d2 because the following combination: e5, d takes e, knight takes e, f6, yeah, double attack. That's why you don't want to do that. Get back to d2. Instead of d2, the Bronstein said better has been playing a3 here. Offering black to get back the pawn by the means of exchanging black square bishops. So black respond, bishop take, knight on c3, pawn on b take, knight on pawn on c3, rook a3, rook to c1. This position is, according to Bronstein, will be better. The queen side of the black, the queen side of the black half of the board is more active, but the king of black is in danger somehow. Instead, the game continued. Bishop d2, knight b6 to a4. Exchanging this knight was the long idea of the author, Bronstein. So he wanted to attack these two pawns. Knight c3 takes knight on a4. Rook a6 takes on a4. Bishop d2 go to c3. Bishop g7 takes bishop on c3. Bronstein said he wasn't feeling particularly excited about taking on a2 here, because white would have achieved their initial idea, and he demonstrated it with rook takes a2, rook takes a2, rook takes a2, e5. And he commented, black doesn't have objects for attack on the queen side of the board, while white have perspective of attack on his side of the board. Anyway, the game continued. Bishop takes on c3, pawn b2 takes on c3, Queen c7, go to a5. Queen e2, go to d3. Queen a5, go to a6. Obviously, black have some romantic idea of trading this. The following position also have a picture in the book. The following commentary is used. Advantage of the black in endgame is based on the assumption that his basic ground pawn on e7 is in the rear and easily defendable. Meanwhile, black's pawns on c3 and pawn on e4 is the perfect targets for attack by the means of rooks. If pawn on e4 will go forward, then pawn on d4, d5, I'm sorry, will be very weak. We can demonstrate it with the following variation. So white takes on a6. Rook takes on a6. Rook e2 defending the pawn. Knight go to f6. That's the idea. This attacked somehow. This attacked, I mean, potentially. Or he said you can play here. Rook to b1. Rook from e to b1. No, rook from a to b1. I'm sorry. Black takes pawn on a2. Rook b8. Rook a8. Wanted to exchange. Rook e to b1. Rook a1. So he say Taimanov, who is playing white, because this in game is better for black apparently. So he say Taimanov was right that he didn't exchange the queens on a6. And he shouldn't been exchanging the queens even later. Let's back to variation. So instead, white here play queen to d2. Rook a4 to a2. Rook a1 takes rook on a2. Queen a6 takes rook on a2. And here white plays e4, e5. Can you imagine that? The following commentary. White have been overexcited about their chances in endgame, or they didn't calculate fully the power of the following move by black. Queen a2 takes queen on d2. Obviously, knight takes queen. The following position ensued. Black plays pawn on d7 takes on e5. Rook e1 takes pawn on e5. King g8. Shout out, Canmuse. Everybody say shout out to my Bulgarian uncle. His name is B. I was recording lecture for him. He's a chess fan, but he is too busy. He's running a dentist office. He's busy to do his day job. So I'm recording some lecture for him because he's never in time to watch my stuff. This is a lecture from Bronstein book, Zurich 1953. That's a game between Tайманов and Bronstein, and it's a good one. I'm almost done it though. I'm gonna put it on YouTube though. So King G8, go to F8. Here's the following commentary. Black have a weakness with the pawn on C5, which is obvious for everyone because it's isolated like Robinson Crusoe. And now white have enough chances, for example, to do the following. Exchange the knight. Gave 2 pawns for one. For this one. Oops. So this is what white should do according to Bronstein, who is black here. Exchange knights. Exchange these 2 pawns for this one, and then it's a draw. Theoretical draw. Because he say in the end game, 4 pawns against 3 on one flank, on one side of the board, with the rooks on the board is not winnable. But it's not easy to accomplish. Instead, the game continued. Knight d2, go to b3. This is the commentary. Bronstein thinks that Taimanov is a naturally gifted optimist. He was going through the storm relatively unharmed, and he started to think, can he just win this pawn? Now Bronstein said for white it would be better to play king f1 instead. In that event, the danger of losing the game will be minimized. Black answer c5, c4. Here. Knight b3 to c5. Rook a8 to a1. Check. King g1 to h2. Knight e8 to f6. The following commentary ensued. Trying to minimize the danger of attack of knight to d7, and in the meantime preparing to attack the pawn on c3, something came up. That black also could be successful in attacking the kingside pawns. Because the rook is doing an important job of covering the rear of the white army. The following continued. Knight c5 to e4. Knight f6 to d7. Rook e5 to g5 by Taimanov. Rook a1 to a2 by Bronstein. Rook g5 to g4. White here almost losing a knight. If instead of rook to g4, they would play something like king to g3. Then you can play, black could play f5 here, attacking the knight. How they lose it, I don't know, but they lose it. Or if white play instead here king to g1. Then white can play rook to e2, attacking the knight again. Rook to e2. Knight to g3. Rook e1 check. King to h2. f5 here. That's why the g4 move was necessary. Rook to g4. f7, f5. Rook g4 to f4. So you cannot take because check. Knight d7 to b6. Knight e4 to g5. Following commentary issued. White almost have been losing the knight. If on move 31. Oh yeah, it's another commentary, I'm sorry. Yes, here also rook f4 to d4. So knight b6 to d5 here, I'm sorry. And rook f4 to d4. This is the position. The following commentary. After, if white instead would be taking this pawn on c4, they would lose pawn on f2. And trying to get the pawn on h7 will be deflected the following way. So let's say they take the pawn. Rook takes pawn. Knight takes pawn. King to g7. Knight go back to g5. Here rook takes g2. Check. King g2. And fork. Right? And Bronstein said the knight's endgame here is winning for black. Anyway, the game is proceed the following. Rook to d4. Knight d5 to b6. Rook d4 to d8. Check. Knight f6 to g7. f2, f4. h7, h6. King g5, e6. Not king, but knight. Knight g5, go to e6. Check. King g6, f7. Knight e6 to d4. Knight b6 to a4, attacking the pawn. Rook d8 to c8, attacking the pawn. Knight a4 eating the pawn on c3. Rook c8 eating the pawn on c4. The following commentary is used. If now you just remove the knights from the board, then it's a draw. But black knight is able to create a fork. Knight c3 to d5. Knight d2 to f3. White trying to protect the pawn on f4. Rook a2 to g2. Check. Knight h2 to h1, avoiding the fork. This fork. Taking this rook back. Rook g2 to f2. And white resign. That was, ladies and gentlemen, game 5 from the book of Bronstein, International Grandmaster in Zurich 1953, between Tайманов and Bronstein. Win the game that has been won by Bronstein. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day. Always listen to your mom, what she has to say. Bye. I'm gonna be back playing Bullet as well. Just let me stop and then I'm gonna be uploading it and gonna be back playing Bullet.